Miles Morales has just begun his new run under writer Cody Ziglar, previously the writer of the 5-issue miniseries Spider-Punk. But can he and artist Federico Vicentini do Spider-Man Miles Morales the justice he so rightfully deserves? We're about to find out. Hi, I'm Jeff, and today we're reading Spider-Man Miles Morales, Cody Ziglar's very first issue. But if you like this content, please consider dropping a like. And if you really like it, maybe you should consider subscribing and you'll see a lot more content just like this. Let's hope I don't have too much to rant about in this one. Let's talk about what Cody Ziglar and Vicentini have planned for this new run. In an interview with The Root, Ziglar talked about wanting to bring Miles back to his street-level crime fighter roots, while also mentioning a new mentor in Misty Knight, specifically how she can offer a different perspective as a black woman. Misty Knight isn't in this issue, so we'll have to cover that apprentice and mentorship relationship in a later day. But obviously the most notable shift here is Ziglar focusing on Miles not just as a superhero, but as a black superhero, and obviously as a black person as he deals with his personal life as well. Which makes sense considering he is the first black writer ever assigned to Miles in his 10-year history. Now, some might say it's insane that it took them 10 years to hire a black writer for a black character, given the vastly different experiences. Some might even say that you could potentially write a very messed up and racist story about Miles that could go viral, because they might not understand the difference between appreciation of culture and racist stereotypes. Bruh. Some might say that, and some might be onto something. Anyway, onto the book. Right off the bat, we notice Miles back in his original suit, getting rid of the last one designed by Chase Conley that we had a lot of mixed reviews for, including me. I actually didn't really like the suit at first, but eventually it grew on me. But I do also love the original one though, it's just so cool. But I do see that they want to create some distance between him and Peter, creating sort of like a clear line of difference just because the two costumes are very similar. You could argue that Miles pretty much looks like an unlockable feature in a video game or something like that. And I could see them potentially trying to do something in the future, so if you like this costume, enjoy it while it lasts. The story starts with Miles logging in his journal, talking about kindness, people giving unconditionally, especially to those in need, and that he's been going through a lot. And on the panels, a new character named Renee, where we see her giving food to a homeless person in the streets. This becomes more significant, especially towards the end of this issue, so pay close attention to all the details leading up. Next, Scorpion shows up and is attempting to rob an armored car. A police car with Roxxon tech malfunctions, and the cop jumps out and the car hurtles towards Renee. Wow, an untrained cop not doing their job and potentially causing the death or injury of a civilian? This book's already too real. Luckily though, this isn't real life, and Miles quickly swoops in to save her. In the middle of the fight, Scorpion gets a little meta, mentioning Miles not being the real Spider-Man. Hear that? If you think Miles isn't Spider-Man, then you're a villain, so shut the fuck up. Miles deals with Scorpion mostly pretty easily, and for once doesn't finish someone with his Venom Blast or some variation. We're already heading in a very good direction. There's a lot of very good signs here. And this is also where we see some of Federico Vicentini's incredible artwork. Honestly, as long as he's on board, I'm happy. My dude's illustrations are incredible. He does a really great job with action sequences in this book, especially the webbing. It looks amazing. And when you look at all the finer details, you can really feel the impact of every hit. You can feel the velocity of each strike and throw. He even adds shards of glass flying out from the bus here. Honestly, this is some of the best illustrations of action sequences I've ever seen in comics. As Miles is wrapping things up, some cops give him some very unnecessary shit about interfering, specifically Agent Gao, a new character that I imagine we're going to see a lot more of given the tone Ziglar is going for here. I mean, this conversation alone is pretty telling in my opinion. Miles mentions his race or alludes to his race, and Gao responds with what I would say is a microaggression. Gao also threatens to arrest him, which is awesome. After giving it back to the cops, Gao mentions that he actually caused a lot more harm than good in his fight with Scorpion, and that even if Scorpion stole the money, it would have probably caused less damage to the city, and that he isn't cut out to handle this. Later, Miles meets up with Ganke, possibly foreshadowing a bigger return alongside Miles. If you haven't caught up on the recent issues with Miles, Ganke has been sort of, well, pretty absent, especially during Saladin Ahmed's run. Judge became a more prominent figure and they fleshed him out, which I liked. But to be fair, Miles also didn't really have time for friends. He was dealing with having a new baby sister
and dealing with the fate of the world and children getting kidnapped and being tortured and being cloned. Yeah, he's been through a lot. So maybe not a lot of time for friends. And so while I am happy that other characters got fleshed out, which is nice, I'm also happy Ganke's back because you just kind of got used to him for the first 7 years of Miles' run. He was right there alongside him. It's also nice because he kind of has some comic relief to a lot of the dark stuff that Miles deals with. And obviously he's a superhero fan, so he's kind of a stand-in for us, if you like. And as I mentioned, Miles has a lot of great supporting characters. I mentioned this in a lot of other videos. So it's good to see them finally fleshed out a lot more. I'm really happy that that happened, but I'm also happy to see Ganke back because he really does have a really great dynamic with Miles. Being super late for class, Miles is criticized by his teacher, Mr. Akpolo. He calls Miles out for being privileged, not grateful for his opportunities, and reminds him that while he never intended to do anyone any harm, he was selected to Brooklyn Visions over other kids. And while other kids might have missed out, they might actually appreciate the opportunities that he has. Which I think is obviously a fair point, and obviously Mr. Akpolo doesn't have the perspective that we have. And as I mentioned in one of my last videos, we never really got to see Miles in school for the first 7 years of his history. I think sometimes we even forget that the first time we ever see Miles is when he's getting picked in a lottery to go to Brooklyn Visions over other kids. I think we should point out though that Miles actually did notice the other kids. He noticed the other kids crying with their parents, and he felt bad. Miles has always been a very humble and very understanding and good-hearted person. I think that speaks to his upbringing, which a lot of superheroes happen to have pretty good ones. So it's not as if he doesn't fully understand what he got and what others didn't and how it's affected them. I also think that we sometimes undersell, even as his fans, how big of a heart Miles has. He's always been written very empathetically. Obviously, his teacher has no idea what's going on. He doesn't have the perspective that we and Miles have. But as a reader, it still does kind of piss me off because we know how good he is. He obviously has other commitments that make it hard for him to go to school even if he wanted to. He's also a child. But Mr. Akpolo's viewpoint is still pretty valid. All of this can be true at the same time. The fact is he was selected. The fact is other kids did miss out on what would be potentially a life-changing opportunity for them. An opportunity that he's not taking full advantage of to advance his life, to make his own life better. That's what his teacher is trying to tell him here. That's what he's trying to help him with here. And it's a valuable life lesson. Personally, I'm gonna blame this one on Peter because, listen, he knows Miles. He knows Miles is in school. He knows that he's missing school to fight crime. He doesn't live that far away. He could easily swing over. He could easily tell Miles, hey, you know what, buddy? While you're in school, I got this one. I got it covered. I've been through this sort of thing. Whatever happened to with great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't seem very responsible, Pete. Doesn't seem responsible at all. Miles sets out to blow off some steam after getting suspended. And of course, his parents were notified, so they call him to give him some support. And also ground him, but that's not the main point of this scene. Miles explains that he's been having a really hard time meeting everyone's expectations. He feels he can't do anything right, no matter how good he tries to be. He swings around some more and runs into Bumbler, stops Bumbler from a robbery. Also, a quick note, is Bumbler just gonna be Miles' punching bag whenever he's feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders? It almost feels mean the way Miles beats on him. Bumbler has only ever been around when Miles is feeling the most pressure and is just ready. He's at his breaking point, and Bumbler just gets the shit beaten out of him every single time. At the end of this issue, we see Raneem, who reveals she knows Miles and has some sort of vendetta against him. Let's talk about Raneem. Now, if you looked into this issue, you probably know that she is going to be the villain Rabble, but that's okay, we got you covered. Yes, she is going to be Rabble. I hope I'm saying that right. Not much is known yet, but she's supposed to be the main antagonist, the main villain for this story arc. Supposedly, she's going to put Miles through absolute hell. And as we've seen through this issue, this story has been a lot about Miles dealing with the pressures of the world and dealing with the responsibility to his people on a greater level. It also seems like we're dealing with two differing perspectives on this issue, because in this panel, Miles clearly mentions who he fights for. He mentioned earlier how he doesn't take kindness for granted. Meanwhile, you saw Mr. Acapulco, who thinks he is taking things for granted, and Raneem, who has similar thoughts, although obviously more malicious. Maybe, just maybe, this is my thought here, she might actually be one of the kids that missed out on Brooklyn Visions instead of Miles. That would be my prediction, given that she mentions the word lottery. And obviously she knows who Miles is. She's probably even from his old school before Brooklyn Visions. This is great though. I love this. I mean, one thing that I have talked about, and I'm sure if you've read Miles, you know this, Miles doesn't really have anything representing a rogues gallery of villains. Most are either Peter 616 villains or the ultimate version of Peter Parker's villains coming back to fight Miles, or villains that they've created that haven't really stuck around much other than, I guess, Bumbler. Overall, I really like this book. I think Cody Ziglar did a lot here. He set up a lot of potential without giving too much away. He really set the tone for what kind of story we're in for and how he kind of intends to evolve and change the story, build the world of Miles, which has been a huge issue for the past 10 years. And for the rest, we'll have to wait and see. I'll be reviewing this run on Miles every single month, every single issue. You got it covered right here. So if you like this video, again, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe so you'll see the video next month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.